This podcast is sponsored by Magic Rock Brewing. Currently, you can get free delivery on all orders over £40 and 10% of all online orders by using our code of TakesThatChance10.
It's the story of a man named Brady who was busy with 3 boys of his own. They were 4 men living all together, yet they were all alone. That this group must somehow form a family. That's the way they all became the Brady Bunch. The Brady Bunch. The Brady Bunch. That's the way they became the Brady Bunch.
Hello everyone, welcome to another live episode of Takes That Chance. I'm your host for this evening, Brady Frost. So it's a new year, it's a new episode, and as you can probably see, a bit like Town, we were a bit depleted squad-wise, so we're looking to the rest of the team to step up. But thankfully, we have invested wisely. I can hear myself, so that's brilliant. One sec, this is going well. Right, okay, cool. Matt makes it look so easy. So joining me, your host for this evening, Brady, Bailey and the B team Frost, is Dan, will dictate play for it, super sub Cy Copland, and in his first guest appearance, it's Huddersfield Town Women's Assistant Manager, Marcus Wilkinson, and we have a safe pair of hands in Phil Senior. So gentlemen, Happy New Year. How are we all?
Right up, Brady.
Good to hear. So before we get into the football, just a bit of a lame one. Obviously, we are in a bit of a lockdown, and I know it's a bit of a difficult time for everyone. But we just wanted to say, I suppose the regular panelists will echo this. Thanks to everyone who kind of commented and tuned into our pods over the past year. We hope in a small way it kind of helped distract you from what's going on. We'll all still be here in lockdown 12 in 2024 when 38-year-old Fraser Campbell's up front. But cheers for all tuning in. Anyway, so I'm going to come on to the game. So we're starting off with Town v Reading. So it was a 2-1 defeat to the top 6 side. Early goal from Fraser Campbell. But a second half double from Lucas Yao can lend us to a 2-1 defeat. So we're going to start off with Cy. What did you make of the game?
Well, the first 45 minutes were quite positive. Good goal, great assist from Isaac and Benza. Good finish from Fraser Campbell as well to get ahead of his man. And we're going 1-0 up at half time, and you're thinking, good place to be. And then the game really flipped on its head for me in the second half. I thought quite quickly Reading looked the better side. We looked quite leggy, I thought. Understandable given the number of games we've had in short succession. And given kind of the small squad that Corbrand's kind of been working with and arguably chosen to work with as well, he obviously didn't and hasn't gone to the bench much, or as much as what he could do, both against Reading and in the games before. And then Reading really kind of controlled the play, and I think, if being honest, we never really felt we were going to get back into it once we went 2-1 down, sadly. But there are some positives in there, and kind of I think we all look ahead now kind of to the cup game this weekend and then the league game after that. Hopefully we're a bit more refreshed and hopefully a few more reinforcements as well, which I'm sure we'll come on to discuss in a few kind of minutes' time.
Yeah, anyone else want to jump in?
I think Si's kind of called it pretty well there. First half, obviously we got a goal from Fraser Campbell. I thought we looked pretty tired throughout, though. To be fair, not just second half. I never really thought we were fully in control of the game at any prolonged period. Really, come out second half and they sort of were the better side for the pretty much all the second half. I had a quick look at stats. We had a couple of shots on target. That were all. Possession were equal. And equal corners as well, so it was quite an even game. I think what let us down was the lethargicness of the side. I thought Edmonds Green were at fault for, especially first one. To me, there he's got to get his body across. He's got to just nod it out for a throw in, and we reset and defend that. But as a young lad, he's playing up against a big centre forward. There, he's not a massive, is he? He's not a massive lad at the moment. I think he needs to become a bit physically stronger. Something to work on over pre-season. If you can find a gym that's open by them. Again, second one, being really harsh, you could say that he needs to get out and close that ball down a little bit quicker than what he does. But again, it's just a little bit of an experience more than anything, and he'll only learn from situations like that. I do like the guy. I think he's a good prospect. I do think he needs to play alongside somebody a little bit more commanding. As much as Naby Sarr, we laugh and joke about Naby Sarr, don't we? That 1 minute is best centre half in the world, and minute next to is absolutely useless. And as a young lad playing next to somebody like that, it can't help. For me, he needs someone like a Peter Clark next to him who will just basically tell him what to do and sort of bring him on a little bit more than Naby Sarr would. You could argue when Schindler's back, or even Stearman, you'd look to partner Edmonds Green up with one of those, but then what do you do with Sarr? So that's a tough conundrum. He's still learning. Like I say, he'll learn a lot from those. Certainly that first one, which can only be a good thing, moving forward. Only other thing to point out, I suppose, from that game is, I think that's now 15 points that we've lost from winning position. We have mentioned Carlos sort of game management and seeing games out, which seem to be improving. So maybe it's just a little blip. Overall performance-wise, I didn't sort of think of any massive concerns. I think most of it were due to just the tiredness. It were obvious that we were playing 85% for pretty much all the match. A little bit concerning that we didn't looked at bench maybe a little bit earlier. We seem to, Pritchard comes on around 75 minutes seemingly every week. I thought midfield were a little bit poor. Aitin, O'Brien, Bakuna didn't really get much into it. We had Villaggio on bench, and if he's not going to throw him on, then when is he? Is he not fit enough? Does he not think he's good enough? We don't know that at this stage, I suppose. But that was the only thing for me. It seemed more of a tired loss than a bad performance loss, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that, Poz. I think, we'll kind of come on to it, but 12 matches in 43 days, you could clearly tell it was taking the toll. I'm just going to come on to Marcus now, because obviously you are the only one here who is kind of in the management role here. So what would you have made the game if you were kind of in the dugout yourself and as a fan?
Well, just echoing what the gents have said already, really, I thought the first 45 minutes we did look leggy, but we stayed on the ball, but we didn't really have much purpose around us using the ball. We got in some good areas, and like we mentioned, we had a couple of shots on target. We didn't threaten them too much, but in terms of Edmonds Green, you've mentioned more experienced player alongside him. One that we could forget about, who could turn out to help him out, would be Tommy Elphick. He's been captained, and if someone can get alongside him like that and talk him through games, and that's where almost the inexperience of Schofield comes in as well. Perhaps if he had a more experienced keeper, they could have told him to get it away or head it out or whatever. So, I thought Romani before, if we call it a mistake, was really good. He defended well and put his body on the line and cleared everything when he had to. So it was just unfortunate that, perhaps a lapse in concentration and a little bit of inexperience has put him in a position once, maybe twice, where it's cost us the game. So hopefully Carlos will teach him about that and won't make them mistakes again.
And last but certainly not least, Phil, we were kind of joking before we went live. I always get for the goalkeeper view from yourself, but what did you kind of make of the game and Schofield?
Yeah, I think like the lads have mentioned there, I think we were probably a little bit wasteful on the ball. I don't think it were one of Aiting's better games, which genuinely, going forwards, he's kind of like the dictator. He will dictate play and play the passes that will split defences into. Again, reiterating the fact that I don't think the subs have been used enough. You've got to put a little bit of faith in them, really. We can go on and say that the squad's not big enough and we need to spend and this and that. But there's some good young kids coming through. We've been saying this for a year now. Get them on, give them a chance. They're only going to learn from that situation. Look at what you've just been talking about there. Edmonds Green, he'll reflect on that game at the weekend and probably think that first goal, he should have come towards the ball. Maybe a call from Schofield he might have called. We're not sure. We can't really say. But he'll reflect on that performance, because I think he's been brilliant. And it's all a learning curve. And while they can get this opportunity and play like the team are playing at the moment, it's only going to bode well for the future for us. As we mentioned there with Schofield, it's what a fantastic time for him to come in and play for the club. He's getting plenty of practice while he's playing. I wouldn't say he's been overworked. I just think he's making some key saves at specific points of the game, which is really standing out for him. You guys, you all look at that, the point blank saves that he's made against the lad from Blackburn and the other one the other day. But my favourite save was the one right at the start of the game where he just played it across him and his hands were safe and kept hold of the ball well in quite a tricky situation. So I think you've just got to kind of look for the positives at the moment. It weren't a great game Saturday. I kind of feel like every time it gets to second half, we're all kind of taking a big sigh and thinking, right, what's going to happen here now? Because we always look tired, and I think that's a common theme at the moment. So season's obviously taking its toll a little bit, but I'm hoping a few more players maybe come in. The lad from Ireland, hopefully, might excite a few. Obviously, the big loss is Koroma. We can all see that. He's been fantastic. What a revelation. So yeah, well, it's a new year. No one knows what's going to happen, especially with this team, because one minute we go out and we beat someone easily and we look really comfortable, and then the next it's we kind of make it hard for ourselves and look quite tired. I don't think it's for the want of trying. I think we can see there's a clear way of playing now, which is fantastic for us. I just think obviously sometimes the legs look a little bit weak at times, and obviously when these key injuries, especially at the centre half, it does make a difference.
Yeah, and I mean, Ready.
I think.
Oh,
go on, sorry, I was just going to say.
No, go on, Poz.
I always feel we need that second goal.
Mm.
I think previous home games with 2 or 3, we've gone in at 2-0 up, and I always feel like we are likely to concede, especially late on. I think if you look at us, we do concede a lot, 75, 80 minutes in. Again, probably due to lagginess. So I think that second goal for Town at the moment is really key.
Yeah, definitely.
Obviously didn't come on Saturday, but normally going in, I think 2-0 at half time, we probably would have been in a much safer position, because they had to come out at 1-0, but at 2-0 they've really got to come out with the style that we play going forward on quick counter attack. That sort of plays into our hands. But it's just that second goal, isn't it? It's just, if you can get that 2-0, although it can be a funny lead when they pull one back if they do to 2-1, it just changes the complex of the game. So I think 1-0 going in, we were probably stuck in a bit of a dilemma. Do we try see it out at 1-0 knowing that we're probably a bit fatigued, or do we push on and try get another? But then we're even more knackered because we're running backwards and forwards a little bit more. Marcus, as a manager, I'm sure you've been in that situation many a time where it's kind of almost on a knife edge in a way as to what to do with your team.
But it's like you mentioned there, obviously when Reading are bringing players on such as Baldock later on in the game, who's an experienced striker who's been there and done it, I think that can make the experience. And if perhaps that's where we mentioned, like we have done numerous times, about the bench and the squad depth, it's not there. So are we trying to see games out with the players that he trusts on the pitch? So that can work both ways. You might put that much trust in them that you don't want to bring them off, but then also they get that tired that then we drop silly points and give away goals like we are doing at the moment.
Yeah, and I just wanted to, I think it's a good point, kind of touched on earlier, but I think we all kind of agree that it was just a bit ran out of gas towards the end of that period. So I saw Stephen Chicken had posted this, but obviously we had 12 matches in 43 days and 4 players appeared in all 12 games. So you've got Toffolo, Sarr and Benza and O'Brien, and another 4 played in 11. So that's Hogg, Bacuna, Campbell and Eiting. I suppose that unless anyone wants to kind of talk about the Reading game a bit more, kind of leads me on to my next point. Do you think the squad depth is, obviously we lost 2-1. Do you think the squad depth could potentially damage Town for the rest of the season? I know the window's open, but do you think that's been the reason why we're not kind of closing out games or losing games in the last 10?
It was definitely an element of that. I think there's tactical bits as well in terms of how to see out games better and how to manage games better. I'm not for a second saying we roll back to kind of the Danny Cowley school of kind of football management. He was very good at it, but it was a bit arduous to watch. But I do think there's some sort of middle ground where we could manage games better, irrespective of who's on the pitch. I think for me, it comes down to, when we look ahead, what is the ambition for the season, really? I think with the squad that we've got, assuming we'll get a few back from injuries, obviously Phil, you mentioned Koroma there, then the squad as it stands is probably sufficient to finish in mid-table. And if the powers that be at the club are kind of comfortable with that and see this season very much as part of a transition, then we probably will stick with what we've got broadly. At the same time, if there's a genuine appetite and ambition to push to the next level, and the powers that be see this season as a really big opportunity in which to do that, there's no real front runners, kind of one or two clubs aside actually, and does choose to invest in, then actually that could move us on to the next level. So forgive me, Brady, I probably answered your question there. Kind of a bit of a sit on the fence answer, but I think where we're at right now, with a couple coming back from injury, the squad will, I don't foresee any issues, but it will be a bit more topsy-turvy with some good performances, bad performances all in the mix, to get that level of consistency we aspire for with the games that are in such close or short succession. Then the squad does lack a bit of depth for me.
No, I agree with that. I think there's been stats out there before about us creating chances and being at the top end of the table for creating. So, perhaps one or two additions might score us a few more goals, and is it papering over a few cracks, or is it actually going to be this team that can finish mid-table and higher? Because you've seen Carlos and his team signing new contracts, so surely that's the ambition of the club. The ambition is to push on and hopefully not be in a relegation battle every season.
Phil, I don't know. If we look at the bench, sorry, Matt makes this look way too easy. He's just sat there loving it in the comments. Help. If you look at the bench for Reading, guys, I just wanted to mention this. Obviously, you got Hamer, who is an experienced Championship player. You got Vallejo, who's not really kicked. We've not really seen anything of him yet. Pritchard and Kieran Phillips came on, but then you've got Dehaney, Critchlow, and Brown, Aaron Rowe, and Ben Jackson. Now, again, it's kind of clear that we are going for these young players to integrate into the team, but just from a looking at the perspective of quality, it's not the strongest bench. What do you guys think? I'll come to you.
Well, this the thing is, they're obviously good players. These kids who are on the bench are good players. It's the chance to kind of shine and for them to have that opportunity. So we look at that bench and we think, well, there's not really much there. But if they're playing in the 23s and they're performing well, they've obviously got something to offer. Otherwise, that is literally why the kids are there. I think it's how we feel when we look at the bench. We look at it and we want to see more, don't we? We look at other teams and they've got these, big name players, etc. But they'll be on a lot of money. Some of these clubs are, like I say, they're paying out a lot of money, and we're obviously not. So I like what they're doing. I have no idea what this lad's like from Ireland, but obviously it comes with a good reputation, highly sought after. They've obviously done the research on it. Hopefully there's a few more of those to come. I just think if they can start building a squad now for next season, I think that's probably the most positive thing. I wouldn't want us to bring in a really experienced player who's just going to come in and pick up a bit of money because it's an opportunity for them to get a few more games under the belt. I want to see us building a team, a squad where people play for each other and you kind of all pushing in the right direction. Too many times I think you're just quick to just go, right, we need a couple more players on this bench, bang, and there you go. And it don't work. And I just think, like you've just said there, the new contracts, Scully's been moved up towards the first team. There's obviously some, information there where they're thinking, right, we're going to push through with this. They're impressed, the board are impressed, the chairman's impressed, the fans are impressed with what's going on. So just leave them to it and just let them kind of bring in their kind of players. But I do think we need to bring in some more players. I really do. Because, like you say, I can talk all day about these kids obviously being good enough to be on the bench, but there's a reason why he's not putting them on yet. And it'd be interesting to know why. I just think he needs to. I think he needs to get them on. I think he needs to get these young kids on. Where's Daly? Is Daly injured?
He was isolated for the last game, and then I think he has been carrying injury before that. But I too probably would like to see him have a bit more game time. I think that was the thing, particularly if you look at the bench against Reading. For me, it felt quite defensively orientated. You had Dehaney on there, right back, Brown on there, left back, kind of Critchlow centre half. Rowe, who is he a right back, is he a right winger? He's played both kind of over the last kind of probably 18 months now under various managers. From an attacking options point of view, which is kind of where arguably your leggy players are, that's where it feels like the squad is a bit thin for me. And I think, again, we'll come on to discuss it, I'm sure, the transfer window in January, if we are going to bring some additions in, it needs to be in that kind of forward third. And there's obviously rumours around Aaron's and all that sort of stuff. So it does feel like the club are, if they're going to address anything, they're going to address that area of the field. But it's interesting.
I keep looking at this. I keep looking at this striker situation with Campbell. I love watching Campbell. I think he's brilliant, and he wrecks my brain every time I watch, because you're dying for that out and out goal scorer that you know is going to, pull some out of the bag. I mean, look at Carl and Grant at West Brom. He did it for us. Did he cutting off the left? He looks horrendous again at West Brom. Playing up the top, and I just keep thinking I want one of those strikers that's going to pull some. But then when you watch Campbell and the way that he works, his grafting is ridiculous. He leads from the front, so just someone to support him for me up top.
What surprised me with Campbell, Phil, was that last season he struggled to put 90 minutes together. He kind of 60 minutes he was used. I know he had it in the pre-season, and then he was in 1 week, out the next. And coming into this season, I thought, to light up top, there's no way he could play kind of Tuesday, Saturday. But hats off to Lavitt, he has done. And when he has, he's put a shift in, week out. He's probably have to do that a bit more, I think, kind of with but kind of, it divides opinion, this Campbell. I think kind of because he was on here, he's saying something quite different, but I don't really think he can hold together, that's for sure.
Yeah, as he does in the chat every week. What were you going to say, Poz?
We're sort of sat here discussing, there's a lack of squad depth and stuff like that, but we're sitting, pretty comfortably at the table. You're looking at your bench and thinking, there's not that much there. But you've got to look, there's quite a few injuries as well knocking around. You've got Koroma out, you've got Danny Ward out, you've got Schindler out, you've got Stearman out, you've got Elphick out. So your bench is going to be a little bit depleted. I think it was Neil joked on Saturday that best player that was sat on bench Saturday were actually Danny Schofield, So, if you could have banged him on team sheet and got him on, you probably would have done. But yeah, we obviously do need to recruit and sort of just pushing that point on to transfer window. As I said, I don't really see much happening in January. Obviously, there is Aaron's already, ready to go if rumours are to be believed. There's the Brazilian guys that have been mentioned and stuff like that. So they do seem very forward thinking, plans and, looking for players to come in, in final third rather than anywhere else. But for me, club they've got to be looking at who's out of contract. I don't think there'll be much going on in January from anyone. And I do think what's important now is that you make strides into transfer market in preparation for the summer. So correct me if I'm wrong, someone, but I think is it when someone's got 6 months left on the contract, you can start to approach them and and nail down a deal, a pre-contract,
yeah.
So that's something that we probably will be looking at. There'll be a massive list of players, I'd imagine, that become available. I mean, at Town, we're going to have to make some tough choices on players. I had a quick look. I think there's Dehaney, Stearman, Bakuna, Brown, Campbell, Diakabe, Elphick, Hamer, Hogg, and Benza, Pritchard, Schindler, and Critchlow all out of contract. There's some players there that you look at and you think, do you know what? I won't bother. Probably more from a financial point of view. So I look through that list and I'm thinking Ben Hamer, probably keep, and that's 50-50. And Benza, he's improved, keep him. And being really harsh, probably just Critchlow. And that's really harsh on like your Johnny Hoggs and your Schindlers and your Fraser Campbells, but they're going to be on decent money. If they're prepared to sign a contract on a lot less, maybe give them that extra, 12 months. But we need to be looking elsewhere, I think. And I think if we can just keep afloat, shall we say, until end of season, I think 10, 15 games to go, if it does look like we're safe, that's when you put in your players like your Dehaneys, your Critchlows, your Jaden Browns. Give them 10 games and say, look, play for your contract, lads, and see what happens. Because if not, they're going to have to go, I'm afraid. It's just unfortunate how it is. You look at Hogg and Schindler, absolute club legends, but if they pass the best, they pass the best, aren't they? We've got to look forward.
I disagree with you on Johnny Hogg, Poz. I've got to say, I kind of would give him another contract. I'm not saying break the bank, but I think if it's a 1 or a 2 year deal for Johnny Hogg, then I think that's something I'd sign. Schindler probably past his best, probably, dare I say it, might want to go back to Germany. I agree with you on the others, but Johnny Hogg's the one I'd probably Maybe it's the heart overruling the head. I don't know, but I'd be.
He's one of them. Okay, if you got 25 games out of him on a bit of reduced money, and he's a bit of experience to talk others through. So yeah, I can see that. To be fair, Si. I suppose it depends on player, doesn't it? We'll offer him money, and if they don't think it's enough, but I don't think where else they're going to get any more. Do you know what I mean? It's one of them. This summer's going to be. Players are going to have to lower their expectations on sort of money that they're going to be getting, especially somebody like Benza. I'd imagine he's on a decent whack, 20 plus. If he's out of contract and you go back and offer him 8, is he going to be like, that's not enough? Yeah. But where else is he going to get more than that? It's a really funny period, is this?
It's going to be interesting.
It's going to be really interesting to see what happens.
Yeah. There'll be a lot of players out of contract worrying about dropping a couple of £1,000 from whatever they're getting. Do you know what I mean? It's crackers.
Well, they'll pick up a few cheap Ferraris somewhere along the line and have to take them back,
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Or they get repossessed.
It's crazy. We're talking about, I would never have thought we'd have been talking about players who were out of contract on 20,000 while I've been following town. I remember George Donnis coming to town and being on 10 grand a week. We were like, 10 grand a week? Crazy. Bloody hell! Now we've been up to 50 grand, haven't we? It's a funny time, really. But like you've just said there, there's going to be. It's not just going to be us, though, is it? So it's going to be a whole host of clubs that are in the same position, and it will be. I think you've hit the nail on the head there. I think we've got to look to make sure that we've got a squad available for next year. Maybe something we haven't kind of looked at in the past and lost too many decent players and not prepared for it. So yeah, I think you're right. I think it'd be interesting to see what happens this summer.
Yeah, and I'm just going to read some of the comments. So we've got one from George Stross. You kind of touched on it, Poz, but would you sell Benza now? If he's not going to sign a contract, he's out in the summer. If someone offered a cheeky bid for him, would you get rid of him? I suppose that's open to anyone, really.
Depends on money, doesn't it? I suppose to me, anyone who's got 6 months left on contract, who we can get some money for. Diakabi and Pritchard, you'd get them out for 10 bob and a bag of crisps, wouldn't you? Yeah. At the moment, if you can, because they're going to be worth noting in summer. So, and Benza, I'd probably. He seems to be flourishing under Carlos. So I'd be looking to extend. To me, he owes us a couple of seasons anyway from his, when he were here before. So really, he should play for free for at least 12 months.
I'm sure he'll think that way, mate.
Give 2 months free.
So Marcus, what about yourself? With the contract situation, is there any people you like? Oh, we desperately need to keep, or we can say see you later to?
Well, it's similar to what the boys have just said. Really, I think he's named 8 or 9 players. So can we afford to keep all 8 or 9 and sign other players as well? Probably not, with obviously everything that's going on in the world right now. So he'll have to look at his squad and who he sees fit to play on. Perhaps like you say, your Critchlow, good young centre back coming through, will probably get an extension. Hopefully Jonathan Hogg does, because I agree. I think Jonathan Hogg for Huddersfield Town is what we need. A bit of experience, a bit of leadership in there, and I think he's settled in Huddersfield now. You've seen his interviews saying he loves the club and whatnot. So I think that would be a valuable bit of business for us. But in terms of like you say, your Diakabis and your Pritchard, they've not really done it. So there'll be players that me personally be looking to get off the wage bill, and I'm sure a few fans would agree with that. But Benza, again, another one that's flourishing under Carlos. So if we get a bid, it's one of them. It's ultimately might be down to the player. If a suitable bid comes in, he might want to move on and go play elsewhere. But I hope that's not the case, and I hope we do sign Isaac and Benza up for next year and beyond, at least, anyway.
I mean, it's a good point, mate, but we've all seen him on the tandem bike with Neil, and I don't think you'd want to leave that. So,
I hope seats are 2 metres apart now if they're on the bike.
Oh, of course, mate. We're socially distanced tandem bike. Yeah. So, actually, I suppose we're at a good point. We're exactly halfway through the season. So we've played 23, won 9, drawn 4, and lost 10. So we're 13th in the table. I just wanted to ask you lads, actually, because it's kind of like a half-term report. What do you think of the season so far? Obviously, we tend to do end-of-season reviews, but how do you think it's gone? Is it lived up to your expectations? Has it exceeded your expectations?
I think he succeeded.
Well,
sorry, I think he succeeded what I thought. If you're talking about reports, it would be could do better at times. I just think I think we look good. We look solid enough. I'm back to watching a Town match where I feel comfortable in the watch, minus parts of the game, obviously second halves, like we mentioned before. So I am, quietly surprised with how we've performed. And like you say, we talked about the amount of points that we could have had. If you look back on another season, it could have been totally different. And Benza, on Saturday, there was a ball across the box from O'Brien where it could have been end of a toe, game over. Do you know what I mean? So I think it feels like it's been one of those at times where it's been kind of thereabouts and just hasn't kind of come good for us. But I'm happy where we're at, to be honest. I think we've coped well with the injuries that we've had. It'd be interesting to see how many other teams have suffered with a similar injuries to us. So yeah, I'm quite happy, to be honest.
And with Phil on that, I think, for previous years, you've pretty much almost known what you're going to get with Huddersfield Town. You'd watch the game and, you'd sometimes hope just to get a point, but the way we've been playing at times and, we've looked a little bit more exciting and had that little bit of identity about us. So I think I can't see us being in a relegation fight, if I'm honest. I do think we'll finish mid-table. And I think that has got to be looked at, especially on previous years, as a good season for the club. And it would be just a case of building on that and then going again in the summer.
I think I'd probably go a little bit. Sorry, Si. I'd probably go a little bit further than what's just been said there. I think Carlos is doing an absolutely fantastic job. You can pick faults as you can pick faults with anybody. People pick faults with Mourinho and Klopp and stuff like that. But the guy's still young. It's his first season in first team football. He's been under a pandemic situation to deal with. There's probably a lot going on behind the scenes that we don't see. What you can and can't do. There's games coming at him left, right, and centre. He's probably still not had more than a week's succession in training because there's been a match, and then there'll obviously be a rest day, and there'll be players going in for massages instead of being on grass and all that sort of stuff. And to cope with all that, the injury list, as Phil says, that he's got, and having us playing football the way that he's done in such a short space of time, yeah, there's always room for improvement. But if you're talking about half-term reports and grading, you've got to be for me anyway, is a B plus, A sort of standard at the moment. I know, Marcus, you've worked with him, which I don't know if we're going to come on to in a little bit, but
let's come on to it now.
He seems a really he don't show much emotion for me. I know Cos's mentioned it because he likes an emotional manager. He shouts a lot and stuff, but when he scores, if camera goes to him, he don't. He's a bit deadpan. He's not either way. I think he's probably got a good rapport with the players. Given he's only a young fella himself, with the younger players. From your experience working with him, how can you see that in the style of play from his personality and
yeah,
definitely he's done what he's done?
Definitely, I think it was the Rotherham game where he's almost celebrated perhaps a little bit too much than what he wanted to. But like you say, I have worked with him and he pays great attention to detail and, he looks at every single aspect of the game inside out, and he'll watch it not just once, he'll watch it 10, 15 times just to make sure everyone's in the right place. And it'll take him hours and hours just to analyse one game of football. So from the little time I did work with him, I know that he works non-stop to get his ideas, and he demands so much of his players and his teams and almost the people that he works with as well. Like you'll know Danny Schofield. Phil is a very knowledgeable football man, and he trusts so much in him. And he did at Leeds. He worked very closely with him at Leeds, and I'm sure that he'll have a big role to play in the backroom staff at the first team as well. So
yeah, it's funny. I've just been talking to Andy Holsworth tonight, and I was talking about Scully because just obviously it's a great move for him. He's a great lad, he's Scully, top fella, and it makes me laugh because when I'm watching TV and I'm seeing Scully on TV and coaching, he's really emotive. Like his hands are out. Bah, 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 bah. He was never like that as a footballer. He was so quiet. He was so laid back. Just got on with his stuff. knew what his strengths were, and just that was Scully, not like myself or someone who would just shout all the time. I think that's kind of come from Carlos. You know, I'll go back to, I mentioned it a couple of months ago, my little trip to KFC, and we had a peek to watch the first team training. And like you said there, I have not got the in-depth knowledge of how Carlos and the coaches work, but the attention to detail from not just Carlos, but the other coaches, who I have no idea who they are, they were literally, you could see kind of like the players' attention was really focused. They was working on attacking from wide areas and movement into the box. And it was so thorough. And they looked like the coaches were enjoying coaching. Mm-hmm. And for me, as a player, if I saw my coach like that, best coach I ever had, well, not one that had a big influence on me was a guy called Eric Steele, when Steve Francis and Tony Norman were playing. And he was unbelievable. You literally just wanted to do it, whatever he told you to do, because he was so kind of, expressive. And I think that's probably what the players will see. And I'm hoping that's why they're putting that extra yard in at the moment and making a bit of a difference. But obviously, Marcus, you've worked closer with him. So is that the way he is on the coaching field as well as his other coaches? Because if he is, I think the players will love that.
Yeah, he is. He's very much a people's person, but again, like I said, he almost demands 100% off everyone all the time. It's not just you drop your standards and he'll be on you straight away. Similar to like you see the other Spanish coaches like Guardiola, you see him always belting out instructions, and you can see that when players come over for drinks, it's not just Carlos, it's all his coaching staff talking to the players, getting instructions onto them and different ideas. So like you say, when players see the coach that passionate and that hands-on, you almost want to give him
to play for him,
that extra 10-15% each game. So that can only benefit us.
He seems very close with his coaching staff. A couple of times it's cameras panned to bench, and it's like a bad version of E17, all in the black coats, and also there's 4 or 5 of them all looking around an iPad though. You know what I mean? And he's obviously communicating to them what he wants them to communicate to. Certain players on pitch and stuff like that, and it's nice to see. I remember managers gone by who just sort of standing dugout, not really doing a right lot. I think we've moved on from managers to coaches, head coaches. They all have these different titles now, depending on what they like to be seen as. Don't they? But ultimately, it's the same thing. You're in charge of the team, and you're asking them to do, what you can do. And if I always think, obviously I've never played professional football, but you work, and if you like your manager and you do go that extra yard in, whatever field you choose to do. So if he has got a great rapport with players and the trust in his methods, then crack on. I'm just waiting for the day we get to a cup final and everyone walks onto the pitch in cream chinos, like Liverpool. Instead of getting a suit, everyone turns up in cream chinos. Yeah.
Chinos and New Balance trainers.
That's the one. Yeah, it's like mate. I was going to try that on Sunday League football, but I thought I'd just get a mucky. So.
Yeah.
So Marcus, just obviously we've talked about you working with Carlos. That's when you were a first team analyst at Leeds. You mentioned obviously it demands a lot from people, but I think we've kind of seen when he gives interviews as well, he's not the most charismatic. He's kind of very, very to the point. Is he quite, what's he like behind the scenes? When you get to know him, does he give a bit of banter? Like, you mentioned he's a bit of a people person.
Yeah, like I said, I wasn't around him all the time. He always used to pop into the first team office, but every time he came up, it was always talk about football and mainly just to talk about the 23s that are getting in the first team at Leeds and whatnot. But, again, even around the building at Leeds United, everyone showed him so much respect because they knew the kind of person he is and the kind of character he is. And, I think in his early days, he took himself out to Cyprus and had a managerial job out there, and that was one of his first jobs. So I think you've got to have a bit about you to, for your first job to leave home and go to a different country and coach in a country that's not predominantly massive on football and not a massive footballing country. He could have stayed at home and played it safe. And I know he did a lot with Villarreal Academy as well and was highly thought of back there. So, he is that kind of person. He's a driven person, and again, he's someone who you do want on your coaching staff and you do want around the place. So, you see in his interviews, he doesn't just give short answers. He loves talking. as you can all see, which he goes into detail about absolutely everything, every aspect of the game. He'll give you his honest answer and a lot more as well.
No, definitely, and we'll just kind of read off some of the comments. Just wanted to get this one in first from Freddie Cocker. Brady, that Adidas tracksuit makes you look like you love watching Sampdoria under-21s on the weekend for pleasure. Good job hosting so far. Thank you, Freddie. Didn't prompt you to do that at all. We've got quite a lot of comments from Pal Terriers. Cheers for tuning in. Just on kind of jumped ahead. But he does disagree with you, Pozza, about Hogg. Says it'd be a big mistake to let Jonathan Hogg go, and I do agree with him, mate. I think you're on your own in this one.
It was a big shout, that, Pozza. I'm telling you.
I can see my Twitter feed will be getting some dogs abused after that.
Hey, be a shepherd, not a sheep, pal. If that's what you think, that's what you think. You don't have to follow suit for everybody.
I can honestly see, without going over the conversation again, I can see why, he'd be a valuable member at the squad, but I don't know.
We've got a shovel down here, Poz, if you want one.
Yeah. I tell you what, though, I'd let someone else tell him. I won't go in and tell him, because he'll have me against the wall, won't he? Knock shit out of me, so.
First chance he gets.
I'll leave that to someone else.
Yeah, so I suppose this comes on to it. We got a few questions about it. It's kind of, for quite a few people, the favourite time of the season. It's another transfer window open, so we're just kind of, obviously Phil's touched on it, but Danny Grant's joined the club from Bohemians. Again, I'm going to do a plug, but we wrote an article about it on the website, so you can learn a little bit more what it's like at Bohemians. But yeah, just kind of some of the other people we're linked to. Rolando Aarons, so again, it's kind of one of those ones that's been simmering over the window, and it does still kind of sound like the deal's on. I suppose he's not been anywhere near the Newcastle squad. How do you guys feel about him as a signing? Because I do feel it's very mixed. Some people, from my perspective, I think we need a winger. It's really clear, especially with Koroma out, and I'm not too bothered if it's Aarons or not. I don't think Aarons on paper particularly excites me, but again, I didn't think Koroma would be having a cracking season before he got injured. So, what do you guys think about Rolando Aarons if he does join the club? Do you think he'll do well?
I think it's interesting that we're still in for him, because it proves that he was, sort of the number one target, I suppose. When you first looking to come, you're thinking, is it Carlos that wants him, or is it someone else? The fact that it's fallen through and we're still rumoured, and if rumours are to believe actually getting him, then it proves that we do want him. I think idea probably was to have Koroma, the front three, if you will. It were Campbell and Ward for the central role, Koroma and Aarons on one side, and Diakabi and Benza on other. So you've got potentially two options for each there. I'll be honest, don't really know much about him. I've looked on Wikipedia, like I'm sure pretty much everybody has, at Football Stats, and as you say, you look at him and he doesn't fill you with massive confidence that he's going to come in and do really well. But if you'd have asked me about how Isaac and Benza perform, in summer, I would have said he'd be absolutely rubbish and get him on first plane out of here. And look at what Carlos has done. So I put my trust in Carlos. If he still wants him and we can get him, bring him in. Just make sure we get facts sent off a bit earlier this time.
It's a relatively low risk transfer, isn't it? Presumably we'll get him on maybe an 18-month deal to the end of next season. I very much doubt we'll be paying a fee for him or anything like that. So certainly relative to Benza, Diakabi, Sobby, the guys who kind of from that Premier League era, bringing in someone like Aarons, if it doesn't work out, there's very little risk to the club in that regard. I'm with you on this one, Poz, not on Johnny Hogg, but on this one, in that it doesn't excite me. He's a kind of quite an in and out career. He's been out on loan to various places, and the feedback from those clubs isn't overwhelmingly positive. But sometimes people need a chance, and kind of we've seen with other players in the current team that Corbrand's been able to bring out the best in people. So hopefully it can be the case with Aarons if we get him over the line.
I think a winger's needed, definitely. I really do. I think sometimes when you look at your subs late on, that's kind of like the area, isn't it? The kind of the out. Bring back Van La Parra for me.
In Spain, man.
Yeah, he's just signed for Spanish club. Yeah,
I liked Van La Parra, but
I did feel my favourite player.
Someone who can. I just think winger who can can get the ball up the field for us in, and Benz has been brilliant, hasn't he? But he's keeping him on longer and longer and longer now in a game. He used to take him off and stick, what's he called, Diakabi on. And it was pointless. And I think, we kind of need those fresh legs out wide. It's the lads are working hard enough throughout the game. You need someone who's going to come on and just kind of turn the team and kind of stretch the pitch a little bit. So I do think it's an area that we need to strengthen. But like we've all said there, like I have no idea about Aaron's. I think if you look at, we tend to look at social media and what other clubs are saying. No one's ever going to say anything good about a player that's left their club. So I think it's pointless looking at that. I think we've just got to trust Carlos and his decision making in terms of players that he's seen. So, but yeah, I do think a wing is pretty key, to be honest. I think we're sorted in centre midfield area. I think Oggy's fantastic. Been one of his best players.
Is it how many times you can mention how good Oggy is? Is that a competition?
Bloody hell, I like a tumbleweed, wasn't it? He's been one of our best players this season. So winger for me. I'm not sure who, but like I say, hopefully this lad from Ireland's going to rip it up a little bit for us. So you never know.
It is a funny one.
I think we were linked with probably also apologies, but
Jeff Crott from Plymouth.
From Plymouth.
Yeah.
Just looking at his stats, 12 goals, 17 appearances, joint top goal scorer in League One, Welsh under 21 international. Feels like he ticks lots of boxes in terms of profile and kind of age range of player we want to bring to the club. I don't know what sort of contract length he's got and kind of how much or what sort of fee we would need to be able to prize away from Plymouth. It'd be interesting to see actually speaking coming how he does. But that was one of all the people we've been linked with so far that excited me the most.
This for me, from my kind of past now in football, I feel quite fortunate to have played that like in the non-league scene, because it's for me these kind of players want it. So Joe Lolly, I remember playing against Joe Lolly at Kidderminster. It was absolutely frightening. I still laugh at my mate Ryan Tulson now, who got absolutely rinsed by him. We actually laughed at him at half time when he came off the pitch. It was that embarrassing. Jamie Vardy, when he was playing with me at Halifax, unbelievable. And these players lower down who are full of confidence, who have no fear whatsoever in these wide areas that, for me, you need to take a chance, to take a punt on. And this is where your scouting network comes in, doesn't it? It's like that little bit of trust in well, obviously your performance analysis. There's loads of info there. You don't really need scouts anymore unless you want to go and find out what a person's like. It's everything's there. You have to click one button and you've got all the information you need. So, and I mean that's another conversation. But I think there's so many players in the lower levels that you can target, and with a manager obviously like Carlos, who's working wonders with certain players and young lads, I think it's the way forward. So, I'll go back to it again. I've got no interest in signing any of these experienced players, to be honest. I think for me now, the way that we're moving forward, let's get some hungry footballers into the club and build a team from that. But that's just my opinion.
I think Town are quite an interesting club. Sorry, Marcus, just to put in there. I think we're quite an interesting club where we've got a proven record of younger players coming in, and we're not, it might be totally different under Phil, but under Dean, it was certainly you come in, you perform, and someone comes in for you and we'll let you go. We're not going to stand in the way. And there's players that are probably playing that league who are quite willing, put themselves in the shop window, come to Town 18 months, 2 years, do what you can do, and all of a sudden you never know where you might get to. So I think that's a good, strong pulling point from us as well.
And that's how it should be. Neil Aspin at Halifax used to say that, come to us, I'll get you a move. That's what he used to say. I'll get you a move. Come and perform for us. I won't keep you. Jamie Vardy, he let him go. Obviously chairman had a bit of a price for him, but it weren't massive. Let him go, because it's an incentive, isn't it, for players? And we have done that, haven't we?
Yeah, just like I said before, just agree with Phil. When you've got hungry players with a point to prove, I think the Jepcott, I think he came over from the Welsh League or the Irish League as well. So he's come over to England to play his trade, and he's started really well at Plymouth. So he's a young, hungry footballer, Welsh under 21 international with a point to prove. So if the Championship offer comes up, he's gonna work harder than certainly the strikers we've been linked with. I know, especially in the summer, I think we were linked with David Nugent, who, no disrespect to David Nugent, but like you say, we don't want players coming in here with that experience, just picking up a wage. We need players coming in.
One England cap, mate.
One England cap, one goal. Prolific. But yeah, like Phil said, the calibre of player that perhaps we want, we've proven that we are a club that can, get good, young, hungry players and move them on. And even in terms of the loans, like you look at your Chilwell and your Smith Rowe, they've come and then gone and done better things after leaving Huddersfield Town. So the same as Aaron Moy, we took a chance on him and came and got a move. So like Phil said, it's proven that a club like Huddersfield, even if it is perhaps a stepping stone for a few players, but come and play, like Neil Aspin said at Halifax, come and play for us, and then we'll happily help you move on from there and better yourself as a footballer and your career.
I'll take one experienced player, Ashley Barnes. He's horrible. I love it. I think he's class. Just get him in and just smash all defenders, goalkeepers, boom, everyone.
Yeah. But looking at experience, I wouldn't say no to like Messi. If you wanted to, could add a bit of experience.
Definitely.
You might be able to play on our pitches.
Call Tuesday night in Stoke.
Oh, I love that.
What's your
the
opinion
Marston's
on the
chicken
market?
shop. Sorry, go on. I was talking about chicken.
Sorry, so Phil, what's your opinion on the loan market? You've obviously got a view on what sort of players we should bring to the club. I think what's quite different from this regime is that we haven't really used Premier League loans in the way we perhaps did under Bradshaw and kind of Danny Cowley. Do you think that's something we should be looking at more, or actually do you think it's just a bit of a shock?
Yeah, it's a funny one, isn't it? It's I've not really thought of it until you've said that. I think the signings that we've made in the past, Emile Rose-Smith were brilliant. I think it was just what we needed. I think if you haven't got anyone in a position that isn't clearly going to be able to make a difference for us, then I think the loans are relevant. I just think when you bring in a loan, if you're bringing a loan player in to cover someone like your Matty Daly or others in those positions, I think it's taking an opportunity away from those boys. But I do think, there's always those kind of players, isn't there? That number 10 spot or a tricky winger or something that is really hard to come by. I think I would make the most of it in those positions. But it's like you say, it's if our policy is now to bring young kids through, maybe that's something that we might not see. Maybe that he's not going to look at this loan and kind of bring us on through. So who knows? But like I say, it just shows, doesn't it? Emile Smith has been fantastic recently, and is that something that we're missing out on at the moment? That's the first thing I thought. Let's get some loan players in at the start of the season, which hasn't really, we've got Eiting, but it's, is that something that we're missing?
Loans are interesting. Where it's worked well.
Sorry, I was saying examples where it's worked well. You mentioned Moy, Chilwell, Smith Rowe. Then there's other examples, perhaps like maybe Trevor Chalobah, possibly, who in his first 6 months, he wasn't better than arguably what we had. But the thing that's quite interesting to me is we take Matty Daly as an example, because again, at the moment he's kind of come down to the bench quite a bit for Huddersfield. Yeah. Would he be better going out on loan to say something from League One, League Two? Look what Lewis O'Brien did when he went to Bradshaw, week in, week out, and then would we come back and see a better player? And is the kind of the restrictions on the squad now meaning that we need to keep hold of him, but only as a bit part player? Is that going to hinder his development? And difficult conundrums and that sort of stuff. You've got to do what's best for the club, but also what's best for the individual. But I think Matty Daly's got some potential there, but we're not going to see it playing 1 in 5 if he needs some games. It's
brave. It's going to come from brave management, isn't it? It's like you just say, you've hit the nail on the head there. It's a difficult decision. Do you let him go out and gain the experience? So Brian left and was fantastic, or do you keep him and kind of give him those little bit of a chance? For me, if I was Matty Daly, I'd want to be out. I'd want to be out and playing and getting experience, because when you've got someone like O'Brien, who's obviously flourished and made massive steps towards where he needs to be, there could be a little bit of a bit of upset there, really, if he's not getting his game time. Kids, modern society now, kids expect everything, don't they? So they're not going to be happy if they're not getting the performances. 20-year-old, I've not had a chance in my first team. There's going to be a bit of unrest, so you've got to manage it well. So, which is why I could never be a manager. I lose my head too much.
You mentioned players going out on loan. You look at like Kieran Howard. He made his debut against Leeds United last season. Then he went to Harrogate. That's the one, and I think it was quite a successful loan for him. Yeah, he played quite a few games and then's come back and he's not featured for us and not been around the squad bit. So do you then look at League 2, League 1 level, loaning him out, getting him that little bit more experience, and then going again with him in the summer? But like you say, who knows what Carlos is thinking regarding the squad at the minute.
It's a tough one, isn't it? 'Cause I suppose it depends on who. Sorry, Brady, just to jump in. It depends on where they want to go on loan.
Mm-hmm.
You look at League 1, League 2, and sometimes Quest, when it runs on past Championship level, and you see some goals and some football that's played there, and actually you could send someone out on loan. You've got to pick a team that plays at least a similar style to you. Yeah. And if you drop down to League 2 and you're just playing with cloggers every week, and you're probably better off actually staying with under 23s in some respects. So I think for a loan, it's got to work both ways. I think you want your player to develop, but you can't just sort of send them anywhere. But it is an interesting one, loans. I always think that they can be well utilised. And again, I know we've mentioned it, but with COVID situation, there's going to be a lot of players in certainly Premier League under 23s academies that are sort of twitching at the moment because they're not going to might not be able to be retained. And if you can bring someone in January on loan with a view to a permanent in summer, that might be a good way to look at players and see how good they are. And stuff like FA Cup, with cup tie on Saturday, it's a good opportunity for some of these young players to maybe get a shirt and see, let's have a look at them.
God, Pozza with the hot takes, slagging off Hog and then calling League 2 a bunch of cobblers. Jesus. We've got a question earlier, lads, actually, from Tom, just Tom. I don't know if you guys have seen that there's the link between O'Brien and Burnley again. If we got an offer, I would be interested to see what you think, because for me, I don't think he's hit quite the heights he did last season, but obviously he had the injury and he's still kind of coming into a new system. Would you, if Burnley came in for an offer, would you take it, or do you think stick with him to the end of the season?
He's a better Johnny Hogg for me, so keep him. Get rid of Hogg and keep O'Brien.
It's hard, isn't it? It's
not get 5 million for Hogg, Poz.
Well, I guess it depends on money, wouldn't it? You got.
Yeah, the money that's thrown around now, you'd want more for O'Brien, wouldn't you? I think we do get greedy, don't we, when there's an opportunity for someone to move on. But there's us sitting down saying that we're happy for kids to come on loan or to sign lower league players and then to let them go on. But when it's one of us own that we've brought through, we're like, we want to keep him. We want 20 million for him. Do you know what I mean? It's a difficult one, isn't it, really? So I know what you're saying about the fact that he's not played like he played last season, but different managers, different style of play. Does it suit him as much? I still think he's doing all right. His endeavours there. I just think that it's just his final ball at times. His decision making at times hasn't just been quite up to speed as what it was last year. But I still think he's performing well. So I don't know. It's a tough question. Is that what do you do? 30 million, 20 million, 5? Would you sell him for if they put a deal in or offer him for 5 million? Would you let him go?
I think he needs no. It'd have to be 5 going up to 8, depending on what Burnley can do.
Trying to squeeze 3 million out. Do we see that 3 million? That extra 3 million, where does it go?
Oh, that's a whole new podcast, is that, Phil? That's a week-long special.
That's in instalments as well.
Cut that bit.
That'll all be in instalments.
£2 a week.
Sorry, I do apologise. Just thought I'd bring it back up. It's just in memory of Neil and Cosy, that one.
So yeah, you wouldn't, see, it sounds like we'd all keep him unless we got a ridiculous offer. Like, I mean, he's a young English player, so there's a bit of a premium on him. So, we'll see. And Burnley have been taken over by some Americans. So maybe a lot of cash.
Phil, couldn't you?
Yeah. Take him.
There you go.
Let him go. I don't want any money for him. I just want Ashley Barnes just to come and smash him on.
Class. Just before we I kind of move on, is there any players you think Town need in general? Or obviously we talked about wingers. Corberan has mentioned about he's looking at centre backs as well. Is there any other positions you think Town need? Obviously we talked about squad depth and transfers out of it.
I made a little note about centre backs. I know we've got three out injured, Schindler, Elphick and Stearman, but for me none of them are the future. I like Naby San, I like Edmonds Green, but I do think we probably need one more option there who's a little bit younger than, in a similar style to your Schindlers, your Alfix and your Stearmans, but, maybe 5 years younger. And if we can bring, that'd be the only other place where I'd say, look, we kind of not desperately need someone, but I'd be looking to strengthen apart from wingers. So, if me and Carlos are on the same train of thought there, then we can't be too far off, can we?
I agree. I do think it's probably an area that we need to look at. I think we'll have mentioned before. I think Ryan's done well so far, and I think it'd be nice for him to have a little bit of experience in front, just to help him out a little bit. I think he's got everything there that he needs to be a good goalkeeper for us. So, and you talk about the spine of your team. If you have a good centre half, Hoggy in middle, and Fraser up top, it does make a difference. So, I'd agree with that, Pozzy, to be honest.
And just a little bit of consistency, yourself, Phil, for the goalkeepers, having, who you're going to have playing in front of you every week, and you build that relationship with them. So it'd be good for Ryan to have someone, if it is alongside Edmonds Green or if it's alongside Sarr, it'd be good for him to have someone.
Yeah, my favourite centre-halves to play behind aren't the best footballers or naturally the best centre-halves. It's the ones that you can rely on and trust and have a good relationship with. So it makes a big difference if you've got that. So be interesting to see. But I literally have no idea about any other centre halves in this league or leagues below. So this is where analysts come into play, don't they? Because you just get yourself out to analysts, right? What have we got down bottom of the league? Who can tackle? Who's good at I have no idea.
Did anyone else want to say anything about transfers, or I suppose it will kind of go on if everyone's good? Yeah. No? Cool. Okay, so just obviously we have got a game. It's the FA Cup against Plymouth. Corbrand's kind of mentioned rotation. So I think, as we've kind of talked about, a couple of people need to take a bit of a rest. So is there any players you're kind of like desperate to come into the team and, have a look at them and see what you think? Because for me, I think, obviously we've talked about the strikers and the 5 strikers, but I think it'd be a great game for Kieran Phillips. Campbell's knackered, and again, I just think give him a run out. Again, we've not seen anything from Vallejo. I wonder if he'd play. And there is those kind of fringe players like Pritchard. I know we talked about him, but I'm trying to think last time he played a full 90, so it might be a good game for him. But anyway, I'll start with you, Poz, because you look like you were chomping at the bit there.
No, man, very similar to yourself. I made a little list of I would like to see, and Phillips is on there, Vallejo, Rowe, Critchlow, Pritchard, give him a 90. He might find his level against a League One club, and we might be able to offload him, maybe something like that. Give players a rest. It's always a funny one. Is FA Cup, because it's one of them that you want to stay in as a fan, because obviously there's the draw of the potentially getting a big team, but this season you can't go. So if we got Man City away, it won't matter because you can't go anywhere. We're not going to win it, are we? Let's be honest. We're not going to win it. So, do you, as a manager, Marcus, you'll probably have experience of this, running women's side in Cup. Do you use it as a way to have a look at a couple of players, or as we've just come out of a loss, is it important to play strongest team and get back onto a winning run? It must be a real conundrum. It's easy for us to go, just play out youth team and give everybody a rest, but missing a week could do someone more harm than good than getting a week on field and getting a win under the belt, and it must be a real tough sort of decision to make.
Yeah, it can work both ways, because like you say, we could sit here and say, all the youngsters should be put in, and then say if the youngsters go in and don't have the best of times against a lower league side, and then it's, why didn't we go out to win the game, and so should have been playing and he should have been playing. But that's part of football management. Every decision you make, it's not going to be the right one for some people, so it's just whatever he sees fit. Does he want to concentrate and prioritise the league over the cup competitions? I'm sure he will do. But when you say that, if you bring in the likes of Jaden Brown in and Pritchard in and other players, like you say, you Critchlow, they're more than capable of adding to the squad. I don't think they'll make us much weaker than, obviously Toffolo's been really good, but I think before Toffolo came in, Jaden Brown was probably one of our best players at the start of that season. So, I think he can come in and do a job in there, and it'd be nice to see Vallejo, because I don't think we've seen much of him at all since he's been here. So it'd be good to see what he can offer us. And like you say, Kieran Phillips, he's been scoring for the B team as it is now. So why not give him a chance? It's a perfect game for him. He'll be energetic. He'll hopefully get in the right areas, and all it takes is one to fall for him in the right place, and it goes in the back of the net, and his confidence rockets up, and never looks back from there. So, but then again, it's one of them where you might need an experienced head of Fraser Campbell to go up and play against the centre halves of Plymouth that'll bully you. So it's like you say, we can sit here and say he should play, but ultimately it's down to what Carlos sees from the analysis that he does on Plymouth. These are the toughest games to play in for a player who wants to impress, because Phillips is going to rock up onto that pitch and he's not going to have Karoma or Mbenza to put these worldy balls in that they've been putting in at the moment and feed them what they need to do that. So it's really difficult for these. At Port Vale we played a couple of years ago, and it was absolutely horrendous. Oh God! And the team had been totally switched, and you sit there as a fan and you think, God, this is crap. This is horrendous. But then you think back to being a player at that time, and it's a really difficult game that to come into and try and stamp your authority. And everyone's got expectations on you. Pozzy, I'm exactly the same as you. Pritchard plays that game and we give him 90 minutes. I'm expecting big things off him. He should be running. He should be absolutely running that game. But when you've got others around you who are just finding their feet, just one person can't do it. So they're kind of onto a bit of a loser, really. So it is nice to watch them play and to see these players playing that we haven't seen for a while. But I just think about the players who are playing on the pitch. It's not the easiest game for them to play in. So it's a bit of a catch-22, really, I think. I can kind of relate to that, because with the women's, we was in the FA Cup at the weekend, and we made 4 or 5 changes, and perhaps in hindsight, looking back, it might have been the wrong decision. We had to make a couple of changes at half time to get us back in the game. Again, we're going to lower league opposition who were up for it. They've got a few fans behind them because there was allowed fans in, so it was always going to be one of them cup ties where they're coming to beat us effectively. We're top of the league above them, and it will be a cup upset, so it's a big game for them, and similar for what Plymouth will be. They'll want to come to Huddersfield and they'll want to beat us. So, like you say, do you stick with a squad that is going to get you through a game, or do you perhaps take a little bit of a risk and change your shape or personnel a little bit and it backfire on you? It's like you say, it's the beauty of football management. You've got to make a decision and stick with it. So. Yeah. Like I said, we had to change our shape 2 or 3 times because we put personnel in there, and instead of going with 2 holding midfield players, we went with 1, and that almost had a negative impact on us, so to speak. And we changed that earlier on in the first half, and we looked more solid after doing that. But it's all about moving personnel around the pitch and getting players in the right areas. And if you change your shape and then suddenly you lose a little bit of your identity and you come away from what then it can upset them. Like you said, like your Pritchard coming in, if he's coming in and trying to do the right things, and then other players are trying to find their feet, like you said before, it can have a negative impact. And it looks, say if Pritchard plays a pass that he would play when Campbell's playing, Campbell will get on the end of it, Phillips might not do. But then it's seen as Pritchard giving the ball away. And then it's on the flip.
Yeah, definitely. But on the flip side of that, Pozzy, and we'll go back to what we think about Pritchard. He's had plenty of opportunities.
Oh yeah, no, yeah.
You know what I mean? So
I'm with you on that. He's he came in from I think Norwich at the time, and to be fair, he was tearing it up at Norwich, and he's never lived up to the height since he's been at Huddersfield. So I agree with you on that one.
No, definitely. What do you think, Si, for this game? I suppose this is a question for all of you as well after Si's answer, but. Would you take a defeat to Plymouth if it meant a rest for the first team and to see some young lads? But I'll come to you first, Si, in terms of players.
I don't think I'd ever accept a defeat. I think, but at the same time, I would like to see some of the younger players given a chance, and I think Carlos has alluded to that already. Arguably, what the worst outcome is a replay, given the kind of fixture congestion we've got at the moment. No one really wants a trip to Plymouth midweek, do they? So,
there's no replays in the FA Cup. No. There you go. I think that's season. Yeah.
Penalties it is then.
Sorry, that's like breaking news. No replay. So
this is why you're hosting.
Yeah. Well, then, the knowledge. Tell that, Matt. Anyway, carry on. Sorry.
I'll follow that to best, Brady. It's a kind of fine line, isn't it? Some of the players on the fringes probably deserve a chance, want a chance. arguably did that at Bournemouth and look where that got us, but obviously Plymouth are a much lower calibre of opposition. I think it'd be really interesting to see where these players are at. Kind of Phil, you talk about giving them a chance. This will probably have a big bearing on to what extent Carlos feels he can use them going forward.
Yeah,
if they're not counted, then we may see him involved kind of in games in the league more often going forward. Kind of by contrast, if they're playing with turned over 3-0, then it might be they're all shoved out on loan or kind of we don't see much of them beyond the B team for the rest of the season. So in that sense, it is a really interesting game.
Yeah, definitely.
No, definitely. And does anyone want to say anything else on Plymouth? No.
I think just quickly, but the only thing I'd say is that usually when you're playing a team like Plymouth, they might be coming on a bit lower league, and if they're on a bit of a decent run, it is a little bit as a potential banana skin. But last 10, they've only won 3 out of the last 10, so they might be seen it as a little bit of a distraction as well. But you'd hope that if these players are going to be stepping up to playing Championship level, they should be able to come in and at least sort of fill in a couple of gaps. Maybe not make the wholesale changes of 6 or 7, but 2 or 3, see how it goes. And then if we are, in front, make a couple of subs a bit earlier than what we potentially already would. But I think Si's bang right. It's a really interesting conundrum. It'll be interesting to see what he does.
No, definitely.
Is it 6 o'clock kickoff as well, Brady?
You put me on the spot here, but I think you're right, mate.
You knew about the replay, so I thought you knew about this as well.
I think it's 6. Someone can check, rather than me.
Under pressure.
I'm pretty sure it's 6. But I wanted to kind of, while I type, I wanted to come on to Marcus because he kind of stole what I was going to ask him there. But just before we wrap up, obviously we're talking about the FA Cup. You were involved in the FA Cup at the weekend, Women's Vitality FA Cup, and it was 3-2 after extra time. So it sounded like a good game. So, just tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, the magic of the FA Cup being what it is. It's it's a famous competition in the men's game and the same in the women's game. So we was the only women's game to be played in the country. So we got a lot of exposure from that and a lot of eyes on us. So it was good for us. We went there on the back of I think 8 consecutive wins, and like I said, going to lower league opposition. I think they'd only played 5 games in the season. We've played 10. So fitness levels and everything were above them. But when you go to lower league opposition, they want to beat you ultimately more than ever. They're up for it. They want to prove a point, and it was exactly what the FA Cup's about. It was physical. It was in your face. They caused you problems. The crowd got behind them and everything. So we're delighted we're in the hat for the next round. But obviously the season's been stopped. So when the next round may be and when that's drawn, we don't know yet. But we're just happy that we got through it, and we've created a bit of resilience this season where we come from behind in games, and when we don't perform well, we've been winning, which for us as coaching staff is massive. And the girls are playing with freedom and a lot of creativity, and that's what we want to see. We're quite brave with the formation that we play in the back 3. You don't see it very often, but the girls have adapted this season and taken all the messages on board and have been fantastic, and that's why we're in the position that we're in at the moment. And like I said, Sunday was evident of that. It was we got ourselves ahead, and I think the last 10 minutes of the game, the ball was in our half. If I'm honest, they were just piling pressure on. They got a goal back, and then the first half of extra time, we've scored 2, and then towards the back end of the second half of extra time, they've got one back again and put pressure on us, and we knew that was going to be the case going into the game as well. So we just, like I said before, thankful that we got through it and in the hat for the next round.
Just linked to that. I don't normally do stuff like this because you lot are normally ones that are dead clever, on social media and stuff. I'm more like carrier pigeon still. Women's FA Cup matches may be decided on the toss of a coin or drawing of lots. The Football Association are considering their options after national lockdown leads to the competition being suspended.
Yeah, I think it's, like I said, because we was in the first round proper at the weekend, and the first round, and we were the only cup tie that survived and went ahead. And as it's only the top 2 divisions that are classed as elite, everyone else below, basically, our league has been stopped. So, we've gone through and potentially obviously a load of other teams, but I think there were meant to be 33 ties or whatever there was, and it was only us that went through it. So that then to get on to the next round where the more elite clubs come in, they are looking at, like you say, a toss of a coin or however they decide it. So it's up in the air.
That's horrendous
about what they're doing with it. But that's why I said we're thankful that we got through it and are in the next round. But we don't know when that's going to be or when our season's going to start again. So we just got to sit tight and wait for the FA to make that decision.
Challenging, isn't it? Challenging times at the moment for everybody.
Yeah, 100%. Especially, like I say, we've worked so hard and we've got ourselves in a great position. You know, we're top of the league and 9 successive wins, and we've come through one lockdown and rallied and gone again, and now we're in a lockdown 3, as they call it, and again 6-7 weeks without a game is gonna be tough. But you know, we'll do exactly what we did in the first time around and do Zoom hit sessions and 3 sessions a week like we are now, but more physical and more physical. So you know, hit sessions and all them ones. So
let's get physical.
Yeah.
So maybe share a word with Ashley Barnes and he can lead one of them. That's into people.
Yeah. I'll leave that one to Phil.
A toss of a coin's a bit harsh, isn't it?
That's embarrassing.
Yeah.
They should get 2 managers playing FIFA 21 against each other. Whoever the wings goes through. That'd be
that's
better.
not embarrassing.
Yeah, like you said, from the top 2 leagues down in women's football, we're not classed as elite. Although there are clubs that pay players and managers are paid and whatnot. So, you know, it's their livelihoods.
17 outstanding second round games.
Yeah. So like I said, I think there were 33 teams that didn't play. So it's one of them. So like you say, you're just going to decide it by the toss of a coin, and it's not really fair for anyone.
It says here the same method could be used to decide the 3rd round winners too.
Mm-hmm. So
well, let's hope it's you get the right flip.
Yeah.
But yeah, just on a more positive note, obviously lockdown has stopped the season. I think I'm bad luck for you, Marcus, because whenever we chat, it's just after the league's been paused.
Yeah.
But, you're top of the league still. Like you know, when the season gets underway, it's looking good. I mean, you know, are you still? How are you guys feeling? Because obviously we spoke to you a couple of months ago, but you know, even now, you know, after you said this is your 3rd lockdown and you're still up there, it must feel great.
Yeah, definitely. Because like when we first got the job back in March, I think it was March the 17th, the same week the lockdown came in. So we only had one meeting with the girls, and that was, this is our ideas, this is what we want to do, and put them across. And then suddenly we're in a full lockdown for 2-3 months, so we couldn't get on the training pitch, we couldn't do anything. And then I think early June we could get back on the grass, but only in groups of like 4 or 5. So you're working on little units and trying to build up ideas without actually having a full squad of 20 players to work from. So you're having to sometimes repeat your sessions 2 or 3 times to different units and different players. But we got through that, and we didn't start the season the best. We drew the first game and lost the second game, and then ever since that defeat was probably the best thing that happened to us. We probably shouldn't have even lost that game. Looking back, we missed a 91st minute penalty and give the ball away twice trying to play out, and got punished 2-1 away at Burnley. And like Phil will know with Ashley Barnes, it's physical going away to Burnley, and that was the case that day, and they punished us. But yeah, we've rallied, and ever since I think the Hull was the first game of the 9 winning run. So ever since then, we've been really good and not looked back. So hopefully we can finish the season and hopefully go on and get promoted.
Definitely, mate. And we, you know, when you guys win the league, I hope you'll be parading the trophy on the Zoom call when we get you back.
Yeah, that'll be the plan.
That's the fingers crossed. But yeah, I think that's probably it, lads, for this evening. Thanks to everyone for tuning in live. Obviously, it's out in the feeds later. We're all off now. I think Phil's going to go chat to Ashley Barnes after we've stopped recording. So
call me.
Yeah, Pozza's going to go apologise to Jonathan Ogg, and
I'm going to write a letter.
Just make sure the fax machine's turned on, Phil.
There's a team that is dear to its followers. The colours are bright blue and white. They're a team of renown, they're the pride of the town, and the game of football is their delight. And all the while upon the field of play, thousands loudly cheer them on the way. Often you can hear them say, who can beat the town today? And then the bells will ring so merrily, and every goal shall be a memory. So town, play up and bring that cup back to Huddersfield. So town, play up and bring the cup back to Huddersfield.